Freedom fighters. Well, today's going to be kind of a weird off topic kind of video. But I was having a talk with a friend the other day, and I came to the conclusion that Muslims win. Yeah, you heard me right. Muslims are going to win. Well, how did you come to that conclusion, Freedom? Well, stick around and find out. But yeah, like I was saying, I was having a talk with a friend, and if you can, the person I'm debating with or having the conversation with, if it goes long enough and deep enough, really doesn't matter how long it goes, whether it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, it always ends up usually in the same direction. What are we going to do about it? And that's what he asked. At the end of the conversation, he was like, well, are Americans ever going to do anything about it? And, I think it was one of my previous videos, maybe not my vets, where, I've had veterans before ask me, like, when are Americans going to do anything? And I'm like, I don't know, you're the one who swore the oath to protect foreign and domestic. But here you are asking a mere citizen. But, yeah, so, that's what we were talking about. And there's a lot of talk of a stolen election and a military coup, and they shut down my business, and, I lost everything, and they wouldn't let me go to church, or they put masks on my kids, or, maybe they transitioned your kids without permission, or gave them the arm juice without permission. Yeah, they're doing all that now. So there's that. Ask around if you don't know, but um yeah, which brought me to the topic at hand, that Muslims don't have these problems. And I guess point one I came to was, if there's a will, there's a way. And what they recently did in Afghanistan was huge. That's your modern day 300 story. This is Sparta. Um, on paper, everything says we should obliterate these guys. We got the high tech weaponry, the Humvees with automatic mounted 50 cals, and we have a Navy. We have these boats. We've got Air Force. We got F-16s. We got laser guided missiles. We've got all this tech and comms and night vision, all this stuff. And we're going against people in sand huts and robes and flip flops with 40, 50-year-old Soviet AKs. Yet they come out victorious, and we're hauling ass out of there out of 20 years, running out of the airport. That's a huge thing. They're probably going to be talking about that for the next 500 years. And, that's a big accomplishment for them, and that just shows where there's a will, there's a way. And, where is the American will? I talk about this often. It's like, how hard is it for you to get your mag or your group of buddies together to go to a rally downtown? Or, even if it's a bit of ways, what about a state over or a couple states over, to go back up your brothers in another state and say, hey, these guys over here are having this big rally for some proposed law, and we're going to have to defend these guys if it comes to it, and your group is somehow busy, or they don't have the will to do it. The American will. And you see the Muslims always come together and protect each other. Recently, I was surprised when the Israel-Palestine thing first kicked off. A lot of these countries were like, well, it's kind of between them. We don't want to get a part of it. Egypt was like, we're not taking these people in. Saudi Arabia and like some of these other countries were like, no, we're not going to deal with it. And lately they've been having like million-man marches. I forget which country it was, but all their citizens came out into the streets and demanded, they protect their Muslim brothers. And in the end, they all come together and defend each other. And that's not to say, they're all at peace and they all love each other, because there's tons of different factions and they're all at war with each other over there. I mean, the Middle East has always been a powder keg. I'm not saying it's a, a place of rainbows and butterflies and unity. But at the end of the day, they usually do come together and, fight for each other, where we definitely don't have that. But, yeah, I mean, in these countries in the Middle East, mostly, yeah, they're Muslim countries, when they're not happy about it, their leaders know. They make it very clear, and you saw what they did to the Afghan president. They ran his ass out of town and, recorded that he fled in a helicopter with briefcases full of cash. And, he's like, yeah, I got to get out of here because they're going to have my head. Recently, I think it was Sri Lanka, where they did the same thing. They ransacked, stormed the presidential palace and swam around his pool. There's videos of this. Swam around in his pool. I think some guy took a shit in his pool, ate his food, ransacked the place, and he hauled ass out of town. And they threw him out, and the whole government. And then everyone resigns, and they start anew because they say, this wasn't working. This is over. I'm not even sure if Sri Lanka's Muslim. I think they're like Indian or something. Not the American India, but actually like Indians, India. You know what I'm talking about. But what are those, like Buddhists or something? I forget. It's a little different, but same thing. These other countries, they don't play around. And I mean, you look at our example of, they're like, oh, they stormed the Capitol, and oh, the people stepped foot in the people's house. Oh, well, who would have thought? But imagine the American version of, us storming the WH, the El Casita Blanca. You gotta love free speech, but yeah, that wouldn't happen. I'm pretty sure you'd meet the 50 cal as soon as you went over the fence, or, but I guess numbers is a different story. I mean, I don't know if they would just mow everybody down if you came out there with some numbers, but yeah, what I was getting to was in these Muslim countries, and then if they're really not happy, we know what happens. Things go boom, buildings fall, buildings crumble, things go up in flames. Because at the end of the day, they're gonna set the standard. It's not gonna happen. So yeah, then it came to point two, was they don't allow any bad talk against them. They call it blasphemy laws. And, for a while it's been known within, like, the comedy sphere, comedians, there's a few topics you don't touch on, right? You don't talk about the Jays, you don't say the N-word, and you don't talk about Muslims. And, I mean, maybe you could crack at it here and there, but you definitely don't talk about Muhammad. And you don't disgrace his name. And there's the famous Charlie Hebdo attacks. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but look it up. I forget where it was at, but one of these cucked European countries, maybe London or something. But supposedly this guy is like a comic book strip writer or something like that, and he did a political cartoon with Muhammad, and he crossed that line that they've long set. You don't do this. And again, in this gun-controlled Europe, or wherever it is, one of these cut countries, they come out of the woodwork and attack the building and put everybody down. And, again, so all these, libtards who always want this gun control, and because it makes them feel safe. I live in a city where they took all the guns, so I'm safe here. No, believe me. We've been talking recently about the border and these cells of the sleeper variety that are coming through. And you think none of these people have guns? No, they're laying in wait for that exact moment when it's time. And when they saw that cartoon committing blasphemy against their leader, their god, they're like, this is when we bring them out. And this is when we use them. So yeah, this whole fantasy of like, you're gonna ban stuff. Your enemies don't give a damn about your laws, your culture, your customs. They're going to do as they please. And that's how you get to be these cucked countries, and that's how they take over. Remember watching a video of an imam openly saying, like, we're going to get with their women, and we're going to outbreed these people, and we're going to take over. And that's another thing. They allow their sons to be with white women, but they don't let their women stray from their herd. They'll kill their own daughters if they go outside the religion or their race. But yeah, South Park did the same thing, and they've made plenty of episodes making fun of Jesus, and they made an episode of Muhammad, and I can't remember if they scratched it or Comedy Central said we're not going to play it, or if they didn't make it at all. I can't remember, but they were saying like, no, we can't do an episode with Muhammad again because they've set the law. They've put it down. You cross this line and it's over for you. And you know what we'll do, because the Muslims don't play. Yeah, they pray, but they don't play. And they're like, yeah, buildings will fall, buildings will crumble, flames will rise if you cross that line. And then no one speaks out about it. Whenever something happens in any community, you get like some kind of leader that comes out and say, this does not represent the Asian American community or the white community, the black community. But Muslims just stay silent. Which, I did a video a while back called I Don't Care About the Optics, or Why I Don't Care About the Optics Anymore. And I was like, that's pretty much what the Muslims do. They're just like, oh, well, Ilhan Omar said, somebody did a thing. That's all it is. It's just a thing. And recently, Ilhan said she's here working on behalf of her people, openly admitting where her loyalty stands. And I think she actually said the blood of my people, which no one pointed out that double standard that just a while back they were calling Trump Hitler again because he said they're poisoning the blood of our country. And they're like, when he uses that language, the blood of our country, well, Ilhan Omar did the same thing. And there's been a lot of talk about dual loyalties within our government that I can't get too much further into, but yeah, it's clear these people are not here to uphold your constitutional rights and your freedoms. They're working on behalf of their people. And when the war comes, you know where they're going to side. And, that brings me to another topic. I was talking about the PBD podcast. I don't know if you watch this guy. He's kind of like a Joe Rogan. But he had a podcast. I believe it was like a debate between a Jew, a Muslim, and a Christian. And they were talking about a lot of different stuff. It's interesting. I mean, he has a lot of interesting conversations. I would recommend you look it up. But it was called Muslims Win. And that's probably what I'm going to name this video. But yeah, it was an interesting conversation. He talks a lot about, one of the Christian guys was saying, well, we convert more people. And the Muslims were like, well, we're not in the conversion game. They breed like rats. And then he's like, there's much more than us. And then there's penalties to leaving. But yeah, man, this video is getting long. It's about to cut out here anyway. So I recommend you go look at that. But yeah, these modern Western women can say they can go live a life of sin and party it up and do the whole football team and get an infinity amount of abortions. And then they're a born-again Christian. Only in the West. But yeah, on that note, you know what I always say. We are on our own. No one's coming to save us. So get right with God. Because only God can save you. Freedom Fighters out.